Hey there, Benjamin here from Lean Strong Fitness and Wellness. I got a question from a client yesterday, which was, what do I do in my off days from the gym? So I wanted to make an answer to that in case you had the same question. So first of all, off days from the gym obviously assumes that you're in the gym on a regular basis. And the way we view this is most people 40, 50 plus should be in the gym about 3 days a week doing what I would call intelligent strength training. So that does not mean we're just like pumping iron like Arnold with rah-rah intensity. To us, intelligent strength training is a mix of a few things. 1, it's building muscle with progressive overload. 2, it's building strength to go along with that muscle using progressive overload. 3, we're always including some core work. It's really important to protect your low back. 4, mobility work. So this is things like for hips, shoulders, and even knees to a certain degree to make sure you're not having aches and pains. And last but not least, for a lot of people, we're also doing some conditioning. So when I say strength training, I really mean kind of these 5 things rolled into one efficient, effective session. So provided your strength training 3-ish times per week. In terms of off days, it really can depend, but I like to keep things as simple as possible so you can get momentum, feel the health benefits, and feel good. And for that reason, my go-to recommendation on your off days is walking. Now, walking gets poo-pooed a lot, but it is one of the most underrated things you can do for your health. Aside from the fact that you're typically out in nature, which is huge from a vitamin D perspective when it's not Canadian winter, and also just being out in nature having a huge health benefit from like a mental health standpoint, there's a lot of adverse health effects if you're averaging less than about 6,500 steps per day. So you don't actually have to hit 10,000 like the gold standard as you've probably seen, but generally speaking, you want to be getting at least above that 6,500 steps a day, probably more like around 8,000-ish steps a day. So if you're in the gym 3-ish days per week, the best use of your time on your off days is to go for a walk. It can be 30 minutes in one go. It can be 40 minutes in one go. It can be a longer walk on weekends. It can be 10 minutes after every meal, which is actually one of my favorite recommendations for turning walking into a habit. But the reason I like to keep it so simple is because we know that everything works, but nothing works forever. So if you're trying to figure out what do I do in my off days, start with walking, give yourself a month and see how you feel. Because I bet that as you start to build momentum and things get a little bit better, not only are you feeling better about being more proactive on your health, but you're also getting more information about what do you need more or less of. So in a lot of cases, some people need some extra mobility work at home. Great, add in 5 minutes of mobility before you go for a walk. Other people need a little bit more core strengthening work. Great, you can do 5 minutes of core strengthening before you go for a walk. Some people can actually get away with walking or walking less, doing a little bit less cardio. Some people find they get better results with a little bit more strength training. And because fitness is such like a it depends type of industry, getting started with something as simple as 3-ish days in the week, 4-ish days a week of going for walking, that gets the ball rolling and you get lots of important information on what you can do next. Hope that helps.